morning, Ms. Norman. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Are you ready?
Thank you. Yes, we are ready, Chair. Chair, I'm not sure whether Chair would like to entertain the submissions on the videos now before we start this morning, because Mr. Hlaudi's team wants to persist with that request. Unfortunately, we couldn't resolve it. Yes.
Yes, maybe we should deal with them now before we continue with his evidence.
Thank you, Chair. May I let him then come?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Chair, we believe it is important that, like we intimated yesterday before you, that these videos ought to be played to assist in the evidence gathering before this commission. As you are rightly aware, is that Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng is here as an invited witness to this commission. And secondly, also, there have been other witnesses who have implicated him in their testimonies. So in order to ensure that his testimony does not become assailed by mistruths and misconjectures and evidence that is not aligned with the objects and purpose of this commission, I believe it is imperative that video evidence be admitted. And this is also in line with the Commission's Act, which is Section 3 of the Act. I don't want to go in and the avenue of having to adduce case law before you, Chair. Suffice to say that I think it is important that the videos be played, and they're not very long, they're short videos. And remember,
There's one that Ms. Norman said is about an hour in duration, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the one that is an hour duration, I spoke to Ms. Norman yesterday, and we agreed that that one we're not going to play it, but there are the shorter ones, which won't take much of the time of the commission if those are played. Because I believe it is important that they be played. And
how many of them?
It's about 3 of them, I think. 3.
And altogether would take about how much time?
Altogether, I think they'll take, give and take, 25 minutes.
Yes.
Chair.
Talk to me about what each one of them is about.
Okay. Primarily, remember yesterday, there was an issue about the letter of Mary Swanepoel, about the issues of what she had used in that letter pertaining to the matric certificate of Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng. And in order to corroborate his issues, that indeed he has always been truthful and always been mindful of the fact that he does not have a matric certificate, there are video recordings of meetings, gatherings at the SABC, where people are addressed by even one of the former group executives of the HR stakeholder, that is Mr. Kobukele Musweu, acknowledging in public that Mr. Motsoeneng does not have matric. And that corroborates these issues. So that all we're trying to do is that we're trying to nail the sail to the mast in ensuring that enough evidence is before this commission. Because if we don't do that, Chair, we will not be doing this commission enough justice.
That is one of the...
That is one of the, yes.
Let's deal with that one. As I understand the picture that has emerged as far as the issue of matric is concerned, it's common cause that Mr. Motsoeneng did not at any time pass matric. So that's one. 2, from what he has said and from the correspondence, from some of the correspondence that we have seen, including the letter signed by Ms. Swanepoel, but I think there is another one that I saw last night, which I think wasn't mentioned here. Ms. Swanepoel's letter and the letter that I'm talking about, which I don't think was referred to yesterday, make it clear that according to the authors of those letters, Mr. Motsoeneng had made it clear that he did not have matric. Then there's another letter that was referred to yesterday that was written by somebody, I forget the name, which also seemed to be consistent with that story. Now, that's not in dispute. As I understand the allegation that he lied about his matric, as I understand it, the only basis that has been advanced for that, or at least from what I've heard so far, I don't know if anything else will emerge later, is what he wrote in the application for employment form, namely where it says highest standard passed, then he wrote standard 10. And as I understand it, that's the basis also on which the public protector's finding seems to be based. I may be mistaken, it maybe is not everything, but that seems to be the position. Now, if the reason, the basis for saying he lied is what he said in that form, any video of what was said in a subsequent meeting doesn't appear to me would help much, because what we have is he has conceded that writing that he had passed standard 10 there was not true. But he says he did it on the advice of Ms. Swanepoel, and he says, looking back, he should not have accepted that advice. And we had all his evidence around that. So to the extent that the video will show me what people may have discussed many years, in some meeting many years after the date of that form, I don't think would help much, because he accepts, and certainly I accept, that it was not true to say he had passed standard 10. But he simply says, when you look at the fact that I wrote standard 10, I passed standard 10, don't look at that in isolation. He says, look at the circumstances, and I'm saying I was following Ms. Swanepoel's advice. So that's my inclination about that video. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Chair, I have a bit of difficulty in taking to grasp, whilst I respect your views on these issues, but remember, at the end of the day, Mr. Motsoeneng, a character and reputation and dignity and integrity has been assailed not only before this commission, it has been assailed in the Public Protector's report, it has been assailed in the parliamentary ad hoc committee reports, it has been assailed by media peddling lies about this matric issue, Chair. And I believe...
But remember...
whilst this...
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm interrupting you, I'm sorry. But remember that even Mr. Motsoeneng, at least before me, he is not saying that writing in that form that he had passed standard 10 was the truth. Even he is not saying that. So all he is saying is, I followed a certain advice, and that happened under certain circumstances, and people shouldn't just look at that only. Now, he has said that yesterday here in public. Everybody is listening, including the media. They are watching, they have heard it, and documents have been referred to which reflect that a number of people from within the SABC say, no, Mr. Motsoeneng never concealed the fact that he didn't have matric. So that's been ventilated. Some of the letters have been read out here. So you can make your submissions, but I'm making these remarks so that as you make your submissions, you can know what's going on in my mind and address it pertinently.
Okay. Chair, just lastly, still pertaining to the issue of the metric, I believe, like I said, the videos are not long, or unless if I'm of the view that if you feel that they're going to take up the time of the commission, which I understand, but if they can be received as evidence, and then even when you as the chair retire to make your findings, you are able to relook at those videos and be able to come up with your own conclusion. If that then can be as part of also our way of assisting the commission pertaining to the evidence, the video evidence in that regard.
Maybe what we should do, maybe we should not make any decision about what should happen to them, about them now. Maybe I should hear the evidence, maybe when I've had even all the evidence from everybody, if then I can assess the situation. And if I think that they would add value, then maybe I could then say, let them be shown. So maybe, if it's fine with you, maybe let's not deal with that matter now. Let's wait until all the evidence has been led, and then we take it from there. Because as I speak to you, it doesn't appear to me, and of course I haven't had other witnesses who will still come, but it doesn't appear to me that anything is emerging that suggests that Mr. Motsoeneng was going around saying he has got matric. You know, certainly he says, I never went around saying I have matric, and there are certain people who have written letters which seems to corroborate that already. And maybe nobody is going to dispute that evidence which he has given, you know. I never went around saying I have matric. On the contrary, I was open from the start when I was approached by SABC and said I don't have matric. And the only thing is whether writing in that form that he had passed on a 10, when one has regard to all of the circumstances, is whether it changes the picture or not. So maybe we shouldn't decide. Maybe you should consider holding the application back in regard to that video and assess the situation later. What do you think?
I agree with the approach. It's consonant with what I've also been in discussion with witness. But I just wanted to an additional issue, Chair, is on the issue of purging of staff. Because remember, one of the allegations is that Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng was purging the staff. In other words, there was some derisory acts upon him that ended up in the SABC losing money as a result of the so-called paging of staff. And one of the videos also will be able to lay to rest that aspersion. So, but like I said, I'm mindful of your view, and we can pack the application for the views to be examined or viewed for now
Later.
until at a later stage.
Yes, you have seen the videos. You're in a better position than I am, but certainly in regard to the first one, those are my preliminary thoughts. But it may be that when you look at those thoughts, maybe they apply to all three. But because I haven't seen them, I can't say until you tell me this one is the second one is about this, the third one is about that. So do you think those views might apply to all three, the preliminary remarks that I've made?
Yes, it does.
They
It
do,
does.
yes.
Definitely will assist in the interest of
Yes.
justice. Yeah, Chair.
Okay, no, that's all right. So I think then we are agreed that let's park them, and then you can renew the application at a later stage when we have maybe a full picture.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Motsoeneng, yesterday we dealt with three policies at least that got changed during your time, which we covered. But what I'd like to know from you, are you aware of the Policy and Regulatory Affairs Department within the SABC?
I'm aware.
Of a department called Policy and Regulatory Affairs Department?
Yes, I'm aware.
Yes. What does that department do?
Mary, maybe through your chair, I just want to clarify one or two issues, Chair, very short.
Yes.
If you allow me,
Okay.
Chair. Chair, I think I'm here not to defend myself. I'm here to tell you the truth, whether wrong or right. I'm not here to come and defend, because the media, the way they are reporting issues, it seems as I'm here to defend myself. You are here, Chairperson, to hear the truth. Your findings will come, whether I was wrong or right. That is you who will do that. So I just want to deal with this issue, Chairperson.
Yes,
that,
yes.
I'm concerned
Yes.
when media report that I'm here to defend myself. I'm not defending myself.
Yes.
I'm just telling the truth the way I understand the issues,
Yes,
Chairperson.
yes.
And I'm not blaming anyone, Chairperson.
Yes, yes.
And other point, the Chair, is the one of the issue that I want to deal with, especially about media, Chairperson. I think
About?
Media, Chairperson.
Yes.
I think their role is to discredit me, even now. Because yesterday, I spoke about me lecturing at Wits Business School. It is true, Chairperson. I have the documents. I will produce that document. I was invited, and it doesn't mean that when I'm saying I was lecturing, I was employed by Wits. Even in my affidavit, I'm able to say society. I mean, it's normal, Chairperson. But they twist what I said in this commission, Chairperson. I just want to clarify those issues because of the tweet, Chairperson, that came from someone from Wits Business School. That tweet is wrong, Chairperson. I have been invited more than 3 times, I think, at Wits Business School to lecture. There is a video that demonstrated that. Yesterday, Chairperson, after that tweet, someone answered that tweet and play a video where the SABC itself play that video where I was lecturing at Wits. They covered that story. It is there for everybody to see, Chairperson.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's why I'm saying, Chairperson, the media, the way they do things, it is wrong. Because for them, it seems as they are angels. We are very bad. You know, that is where I have problem, Chairperson, because we are human beings.
No, it's very important that the media should give a balanced, news, but I'm confident that even the clarification that you are giving or the elaboration where you say what was said that came from Wits Business School was not correct, and that you actually have material, and you say you were not invited just once. You say it was 3 times, and you say actually SAPC even have, or somebody has even a video. So they hopefully they will, report on that as well.
Yes, Chairperson. Lastly, Chairperson, just to close the issue of visuals. In my view, Chairperson, the journalists, they argue about public interest, that what they are doing is in the public interest. I have a different view, but guided by the Act itself. It can be banning school, banning clinics, it is in the public interest. My view is different. It can be in the public interest.
No, no, Mr. Motsoeneng. Obviously, nobody would say banning school is in the public interest. But I think what you mean is, what you are talking about is whether reporting on the banning of school or showing the visuals of the banning of the school.
Yes, Chair. No, Chairperson, I agree with you. But
The
they are,
distinction,
for me,
Yes.
in their own minds, in their own view, by showing these visuals is in the public interest. That is what they argue here, Chairperson. So I'm
Yes,
just
the
saying,
showing of the visuals, yeah.
yes, they are saying it is in the public interest. I'm saying it is not in the public interest, because it is also been identified by the Act. It is not in the public interest. I just want to clarify that issue, Chairperson. Especially when you
Yes.
look, the role of SABC, one of mandate is to educate. How do you educate people? Encouraging them to ban schools or clinics, Chairperson. Just in short, Chairperson.
Yes, no, I have a strong suspicion that Ms. Norman will be going there to ask you some questions on your views in that regard.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Motsoeneng. I asked the question of what is the role of that Policy and Regulatory Affairs Department within the SABC?
Their role, Chairperson, is to deal with regulations within SABC, including working together with ICASA, even our proposal on the policies and so on during the consultation. They will be part of that team, and they will take the SABC views or opinions on the matter and contribute. So they monitor the regulations within the SABC.
So in other words, any policy that anyone within the SABC proposes must go through that department, which department will then take it through to ICASA.
Yes, Chair. Normally what we do, Chairperson, as I said yesterday, we have summits at the SABC where we'll come with maybe policy or some of the issues. So where we discuss all these issues, their role is, after we have taken decision, they will be able to inform ICASA on such matters. Example, when we're dealing with the policy, when it comes to news, when it comes to content, their role is to relate those decisions within the SABC to ICASA.
Yes. And then ICASA is to see whether constitutionally the policy that was being mooted or is being mooted by whoever within the SABC is in line with the Constitution and all the regulatory framework of the SABC.
Correct, Chair.
Yes. Now, let's talk about the 9010 policy. Did that policy, I call it a policy, but the 9010 directive or instruction, did that in fact become a policy of the SABC?
Yes, Chair, it is a policy, and that policy arises from the Broadcasting Act. Because when you read a Broadcasting Act, it says that the role of SABC is to develop local content is to develop production houses, but also is to cater 11 languages. So when I was arguing about this local content, is here, Chairperson, we are guided by Broadcasting Act, but also as human beings, we want to make sure that people who benefit are South Africans first.
Yes. Now, I appreciate that, but let's talk about this. When you felt that the 90-10 policy it must be developed, did it go through the department, the Policy and Regulatory Department of the SABC?
Yes. Reason being, Chair, as I said, we have all this summit, we have ESCO meetings, where the teams sit together, we brief the team, but also remember, the policy is the board issue. It goes through the steps within the organization, it goes to the board for approval.
Are you aware whether it went to ICASA? Because you remember when you outlined the role of that department, you mentioned ICASA. Did that go through to ICASA?
That is the role of that unit within the SABC to inform ICASA about all the decisions that we are taking in the SABC. I will take that they have taken to ICASA, because that is their role.
Now, that's the one policy. Let's talk about then the violent protest policy coverage. Did you regard that as a policy?
The violence policy is the act, is the law. Is here, Chairperson, I think in my affidavit, I also quote the act that you can't glamourize such visuals. It is unlawful to do that. We are guided by the act, Chairperson. We may be wrong, Chairperson, where I'm saying, that's why I was saying, I'm not here to defend, I'm just here to explain my understanding and what I did, Chairperson. And Chairperson, you know, people are shocked because they were thinking that I'm coming here to defend, to say I'm not here to defend the Chairperson, and I want to emphasize that you will decide. I may be wrong, I may be right. That is not me to decide on the matters. That is how SABC were operating, and that is how we feel that we're supposed to do things the way we did.
Yes.
Maybe I can
Yes, thank you,
just explain the difference between the Act and regulations and the policy. Now, because she asked you whether the instruction or directive relating to not showing visuals relating to banning of property, whether that should not be shown. You know, you would find that there's the Constitution of the country, which deals with a lot of things, placing obligations on institutions and people and conferring rights on people. Then you have got legislation and acts. All of those are binding in regard to certain issues. When they place an obligation, it's binding. And where they give a right, that right is a right that should be respected, and people can go to court about it. And you might have regulations which are promulgated in terms of an act of parliament. They deal with more details that an act might not deal with. And then you have got a policy. A policy usually is a guide. It's not rigid. Usually that's the main difference, I think, between an act or regulation and a policy. But the policy must not be in conflict with legislation or with the Constitution. So a policy is supposed to say, this is how we will normally deal with this kind of situation. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there can never be a deviation if circumstances require a deviation. So that's the understanding, that's the distinction that I thought I might just mention.
Thank you, Chair.
Maybe then we can go back to the question.
Thank you, Chair.
So in other words, there would be a difference between the policy and an act, but the two might be saying the same thing, and so on. Okay, all right. You want to say something?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, I agree with you 100%, because my view is the policy we should align any policy with the act. Yes, Chairperson, I agree with you 100%. That's why, Chairperson, I'm having this book.
Yes,
and when
yes.
we took these decisions, I was reading this book, Chairperson,
Okay,
very well.
okay.
I may be wrong in my
Yes,
reading, but
but-
I was guided by this book.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now, having then, when the Chair has explained to you, Mr. Motsoeneng, how these two differ, the instruction to people not to cover, or to the journalists not to cover violent protests. Now, what I'd like to understand, did that instruction go through the Policy and Regulatory Framework Department so that they could assess the type of the instruction that was being given and how would it affect the existing policies and how would it relate to ICASA's mandate?
Chairperson, it is not a policy. It was a decision that we have taken at the SABC. Myself and Dr. Chizumba, who was in charge for PBS and PCS, your commercial and your public platforms. So we discussed these issues before we released that press statement. But we didn't say they should not cover, Chairperson, because I want to clear this issue. We didn't say they should not cover.
Well, I was going to come back to that later on to say, let us hear exactly what whether it's a policy or decision, what it said should or should not be done.
Yes, Chairperson. When we release a statement is released by the spokesperson of the organization. I saw that statement saying, talking about we are not going to show the people banning building or whatever, banning, let me use this word, banning. But the intention of that, it was people should be responsible when they report about these issues, Chairperson. You know, because people, they were having really different views, especially media general. I was called by a press club, myself and Datejo Tolo. I explained there to say, look, what we are saying here is, we are saying, don't show the physicality, which means the physicality, Chairperson, it will be, if someone just come and ban this, and we are inside this room, don't show those visuals where people now are seen being banned. That was the intention, Chairperson. Even after that, SABC has been covering such visuals. It's just the responsibility part. We're not banning anything, Chairperson. We're just saying, let us be responsible and show that we are responsible when we deal with these issues. It is not really banning.
So are you therefore saying that that decision was not to the effect that if an SAP journalist is covering a protest and protesters set a building alike or a clinic or a school, they should not show that per se? You were simply saying if there is something else other than just the burning of the property, like maybe somebody who was trying to come out of the building being caught in fire, don't show that part. Is that what you are saying the decision was about?
Yes, Chairperson, the decision was just be responsible when you deal with these issues. And that is not where we are instructing people don't cover the story. That was not the issue, Chairperson. And I will allude to this, Chairperson. Sophie Mugwena and Nothando Maseko, they were concerned about that statement immediately after releasing that statement. Early in the morning, they arrived in my office to ask, hey, COO, but what is this issues that you are talking about now? We don't understand. Can you explain? I explained to them. They did understand where I come from, Chairperson. That's why all the Pretoria's riots, they were covered during my time. The issue is that let us be responsible when we deal with these issues. And Chair, yesterday I said, I have been a journalist. You know, when people mobilize, even calling us as journalists to say, you know, tomorrow we are going to do 1, 2, 3. I was saying it is wrong. So we as SABC, including the journalists of SABC, they should not do that, because immediately when you become part of that, you are not doing what you are supposed to do, Chairperson. It has nothing to do with banning, as people are putting it, Chairperson. And I'm on record, I have explained several times, Chairperson, on those issues.
I think what becomes important is to understand exactly what the ambit of the directive or decision was, and to understand how the journalists who were supposed to comply with it, whether it told them this is what you should not do, and therefore they would know, if I do this, I will be in breach of this decision. Or whether it was difficult to say exactly what it means. You say the idea was be responsible. Now, of course, when you say be responsible, the question would be, what does that actually mean? Now, we have used one example which I seem to think you said it would fall within the decision, the ambit of the decision, namely, if a building is burning and somebody was trying to come out now is caught in the fire, please don't show that part. Did you say that would fall within what you would say, don't, if you are responsible, you are not going to show that part where the person is burning?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. So the question then would be, how far would this go? When are you being responsible? When are you not being responsible? If the idea is not to say, don't show the burning of property at all. Because, of course, just from observing publicly, there would be very few instances where properties being burned during a protest, and well, maybe I shouldn't say there would be very few, but I hope there wouldn't be too many instances where people are inside the building. But what other examples could you give to say, well, it would have been in breach of that decision or in defiance of that decision if a journalist did A, B, C, D?
Chairperson.
Or did you not go that far in excuse me, clarifying it in your own mind?
No, Chairperson, the issue here, Chairperson, is in my affidavit, I refer where the Act says you can't glamorize violence, you can't show explicit visuals. So I have clarified these issues. What informs is the Act, Chairperson, because if we operate outside this Act, it will be unlawful, Chairperson. I don't want to say that because I'm not Chairperson. I'm not in your position. You have the right to say that, but I'm just saying it's my understanding because I don't want to. Yes, Chairperson. It will be unlawful because we are guided by the Act, Chairperson. Because if we are going to do and operate outside this Act, I have a serious problem, Chairperson, because this Act is not covering private media. It's covering a public broadcaster, Chairperson, in my understanding. So people, they want to compete in the space equally with the private media. That is where I think we have different views, Chairperson, and understanding of how we should deal with these issues, Chairperson. Maybe, Chairperson, to come in to your example that you did about someone going out and then someone now, the visual show the person as, yes, Chairperson. So, to be honest, Chairperson, that is not allowed.
Yes. Now that I wanted confirmation that that situation would fall within what your decision was saying should not be shown. And then my question was to see whether you are able to point out other, maybe 2 or 3 other examples of the kind of thing that should not be shown when you say be responsible.
Hey, Chairperson, this other is a difficult one because publicly, you know, there is language that you can't, you can't use. There are several.
Yes,
but because I'm at a public platform, but I can write another affidavit, Chairperson, what I meant, because some of the issues, to be honest, publicly, even myself, I don't want to deal with them, but there are few. Yes, Chairperson.
No, that's fine. Ms. Newman?
Thank you, Chair. May I just refer to it's referred to as the editorial edict. If I may just refer, Chair, to a
Just
bundle.
1 second.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Thank you,
Yes.
Chair. It's Exhibit CC05 to Exhibit CC16. CC05 to CC16. Chair, I would not have asked that it be placed before you. I decided that maybe it's better if they are laid here and then every time it's put up because they're just 5 to 16. That's why you've got a long list of names on it. Don't have it.
Did you get the name of the what exhibit it is correctly?
We've got about 16 names on it, where you have Mr. Piri and them. Is it
Remember, I
on
have got some here. If you tell me
the page?
it's one which has got what the policy.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, Chair, this is the one that's got the instruction on the protest. So,
Okay,
thank you,
all right.
Chair.
Well,
Thank you. Mr. Motsoeneng, could you please just have a look whether you
remember,
find-
he said he doesn't have to have
Oh,
a
he
look.
doesn't have to
He
read. We
remembers
can read.
these things, but I said that if he does
He does
need,
need
he
it,
must
then he
just
can
say so.
indicate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
I
Chair-
think read to him what
Yes,
you
what
have.
is contained.
And
Chair-
yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I would like you to turn to CC12, which is the statement of Mr. Jacob Daniel Krige. To his statement, he attached the Labour Court judgment.
I've got the Labour Court judgment in front of me.
Yes, Chair, that is
Yes.
where the edit is
It
quoted.
quotes.
It quotes it.
It quotes it, yes.
Thank you, Chair. At page 84.
Okay.
Thank you. If I may just read, Mr. Motsoeneng, what the Labour Court recorded.
So, but you are reading the statement issued by the SABC on protests as
Yes.
quoted by the Labour
By
Court.
the, as quoted by the
judgment.
Labour
Yeah.
Court, yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And then the Labour Court in paragraph 8, just on page 83, it says, it is now well known that on 26 May 2016, the SABC issued the following news editorial edict known as the protest policy, which stated, SABC will no longer broadcast footage of destruction of public property during protests. Johannesburg, Thursday, 26 May 2016. The South African Broadcasting Corporation, in brackets SABC, has noted with concern the recent turmoil arising from violent service delivery protests in various parts of the country. The SABC, as a public broadcaster, would like to condemn the burning of public institutions and has made a decision that it will not show footage of people burning public institutions like schools in any of its news bulletins with immediate effect. We are not going to provide publicity to such actions that are destructive and regressive. The SABC is cognizant of the fact that citizens have constitutional rights to protest and voice their concerns on various issues that they are not happy with, but we also do not believe that destruction of property is the best way to voice those grievances. These actions are regrettable and viewed as regressive on the developments made after 22 years of South Africa's democracy. Continuing to promote them might encourage other communities to do the same. The SABC would like to stress that we will continue to cover news without fear or favor. We will not cover people who are destroying public property. The SABC Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng, stated that it is regrettable that these actions are disrupting many lives, and as a responsible public institution, we will not assist these individuals to push their agenda that seeks media attention. As a public service broadcaster, we have a mandate to educate the citizens, and we therefore have taken this bold decision to show that violent protests are not necessary. We would like to encourage citizens to protest peacefully without destroying the very same institutions that are needed to restore their dignity. The SABC would like to make an appeal to other South African broadcasters and the print media to stand in solidarity with the public broadcaster, not to cover the violent protests that are on the rise, and in turn destroying public institutions. Is this the statement that you issued, Mr. Motsoeneng?
Chairperson, it is correct.
Yes.
We even try to lobby our partners, but they came for us. But Chairperson, I'm still saying that statement demonstrates people who are responsible, people who are accountable on all issues that the decisions that we were taking. The issue there, Chairperson, we didn't say, well, when you release statement, I'm just saying, Chairperson, because I can't say to people, go and ban, we're going to cover. I was just running away from, because I knew that people they were even calling us. Now they are going to march and do ABC. We're just discouraging them. But we are still covering those visuals when they go and cause the havoc that they were, because we're still covering it, Chairperson. It is a responsible statement. I don't see any wrong about that statement, Chairperson, because we are still covering. But when you do it, Chairperson, even your children, they can do this, but there is a way that they must do it. There is a way that you'll talk to them. And I'm not saying people of South Africa are children, Chairperson, because media can say I said people are children. So I'm not implying that. I'm just saying there is a way of talking, but knowing when you do your work, you do it professionally, even informed by the Broadcasting Act, Chairperson. So I don't think that statement, Chairperson, really, I think it supports what I said earlier, Chairperson.
I'm sure Ms. Norman has further questions for you on that issue.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. So I just want to understand that two of you within the SABC decided one day that this thing has to stop, it must not be covered. And you issued a statement.
Chairperson, I have already answered that question.
Yes.
I said, Chairperson, that is communication that went through to media or people of South Africa, but the reality, we were still covering those visuals. But we said to our people, be responsible, Chairperson, because the view that we banned.
I'm sorry, Mr. Motsoeneng, but the question is, in effect, who are the people who made this decision? And I think Ms. Norman was saying, did you say it was two people? Who are the people who made this decision, if it was more than one?
Chairperson, as the COO of the organization, it is my role to take such decisions. I took that decision, Chairperson, and I stand by that decision. So wrong or right, you'll have your finding, Chairperson,
yes,
because I think I did the right thing for SABC. I still stand by that decision.
Yes.
I take ownership
Yes.
chairperson, on what I did.
So it was your decision.
It was my decision.
Yes.
I consulted Jimmy Matthews.
Yes.
I consulted Dr. Chizumba.
Yes, yes.
But we agree on
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So now this decision is taken, and you've taken full responsibility of this decision. And anyone who differed with that decision had to be disciplined.
Not at all.
Then can you explain to the chairperson how come that we have the SABC 8 that people that got fired, that got suspended, got charged as a result of failing to comply with that decision?
Before that,
Sorry.
Ms. Norman, I thought you might have questions prior to reaching that point.
Oh, yes,
I
Chair.
certainly do.
Yes, yes, Chair.
Mr. Motsoeneng, Ms. Norman won't forget her question. Later
Yes.
on, she will ask it again. I don't read this statement that Ms. Norman has just read out aloud to mean what you have said. You have said the decision was not that the journalists should not show visuals of protesters burning property, for example. You have said that they must be responsible. And we made that example that I raised with you to say, okay, were you talking about, for example, a building is being burnt during a violent protest and somebody is coming out of the building and gets caught out in the fire, and you say, that part, they must be sensitive, they mustn't show that part. And you said that would be one of the examples. And you said there are other examples which you didn't feel comfortable mentioning because this is a public forum. So my understanding of what your evidence is the decision that you took and conveyed did not say if people are burning property during protests, don't show that. Yours was to go beyond that. If there's something else that's happening or that's connected with this burning of property. My understanding of your evidence was correct?
It's correct, Chair.
Was correct, yeah. Let's go back, let's go to this statement. You must just say if you would prefer to have it at hand now that we are going to it, but if you are still comfortable, if I just read the relevant portion, that's fine. Okay.
No, Chair, I'm comfortable,
You are comfortable.
because I was involved, so I know. the
Okay,
story. Yes,
okay, all right. Let me just read some relevant parts of some parts of this statement. The South African Broadcasting Corporation has noted with concern the recent turmoil arising from violent service delivery protests in various parts of the country. So the concern is turmoil arising from violent service delivery protests in various parts of the country. Then it says the SABC as a public service broadcaster would like to condemn the banning of public institutions and has made a decision that it will not show footage of people banning public institutions like schools in any of its news bulletins with immediate effect. We are not going to provide publicity to such actions that are destructive and regressive. Let's just take that. That seems to me, and you must tell me whether my reading of it is, in your view, incorrect. That says we are not going to show visuals of the burning of property during protests. That's my understanding of it. Is that your understanding as well? Just that part, if you say, well, if you read that part alone, I agree, but if you read it with the rest of something else that is said in the statement, it changes the picture, then we can go there. But I just want to say, if anybody who read that part, would they be mistaken to say the SABC was saying to the public, you are no longer going to see visuals of the burning of properties by protesters?
Chairperson, my understanding on these matters is we release a statement, Chairperson. I agree with you, Chair, firstly. We release a statement, but when you release as accountable and responsible person, I can't say we are going to, I can't incite people. Let me use this word. I can't incite people, because by saying, no, we will show these visuals, I'll be inciting a community to do the same stuff that I know it is unlawful through the act. But also, Chairperson, why we released that statement? People were calling us, now they were marching to SABC, because when they see Free State is burning, Gauteng start. So they were saying, no, you have covered Gauteng. You have covered that one, you didn't cover us. So we are just dispelling to say, no, but this we can't. We are just discouraging people. But we knew that, that's why I explained after, Chairperson, when people were asking these issues, I clarify, I think, at that point, what we meant by this statement. It was not a malicious statement, Chairperson. We did that in good faith.
Yes.
To deal with such issues.
Yes, but do you accept sitting there now as we talk and me reading this part, do you accept that it says what I'm saying? Namely, the SABC is no longer going to show you, the public, it's no longer going to show you the burning of property by protesters.
Chairperson, I agree with you.
Yes.
And I also saying when you go to other paragraph where you
Yes.
spoke about people should march
Yes.
peacefully,
Yes.
which means we'll show
Yes.
what people are doing.
Yes.
We're just, I mean, Chairperson, to be
Yes.
honest, I think it's good accountability. I may be wrong, I may be right. I leave that to you, Chairperson. But that is how we view issues, especially when people were starting to march to the SABC to demand us to show them, especially Vianney, Chairperson. You know what happened. You know what happened, Library Invest and other places. I'm just giving you an example, Chairperson.
Yeah.
And I can allude to today, Chairperson. The Facebook International, if I'm correct, I think someone told me this this morning. They also banned this explicit visuals on their platform. I mean, I'm just saying there is background, Chairperson, on
Yes.
these issues. Yes.
No, that's fine. I think at this stage, what I'm trying to establish is what anybody reading the statement would understand. So what the statement means. It may be that when you explained subsequently after it had been issued to certain people or to the media, the explanation was something else. But I just want to say this is what it seems to mean. But I think we have agreed that at least as far as this part is concerned, that is what it said. It said SABC will no longer show visuals of protesters burning property. And then we can go forward and look at others.
Yes, Chair.
That's fine.
We agree, Chair.
We agreed on that, yeah.
And I want to say, Chairperson, if you take what the Labour Court says,
Yes.
with due respect, Chairperson, I submit that I think by calling it a policy, it was wrong because it was a decision. It was not a policy. Yes, Chair.
Yes, okay. Then that was the one paragraph, and it is at page 84 of this bundle. In the next paragraph, this is what the statement said. The SABC is cognizant of the fact that citizens have constitutional rights to protest and voice their concerns on various issues that they are not happy with. But we also do not believe that destruction of property is the best way to voice those grievances. These actions are regrettable and viewed as regressive on the developments made after 22 years of South Africa's democracy. That might be fine. Then the next sentence, the next two sentences of that paragraph. Continuing to promote them might encourage other communities to do the same. The SABC would like to stress that we will continue to cover news without fear or favor. We will not cover people who are destroying public property. Again, we will look at other parts. Just this part seems to make it quite clear that the SABC is not going to show the public the burning of property by protesters. Are we agreed?
Chairperson, I'm one person. If I have taken decision wrong or right, I will just say my views. I don't want to say I disagree or I agree with you, Chairperson. You will come to that conclusion. The statement is correct the way you are putting it, Chairperson. Yes, it's correct, Chairperson.
Yes.
I just want to elaborate, Chairperson, that
Yes.
I still believe where I'm sitting now, Chairperson,
Yes,
in this
yes,
seat,
yes.
that I did the correct.
Yes.
I was correct when I took that decisions. I mean, Chairperson, when you destroy schools where our children are going to, they are not going to be able to be in the school, especially when we know there is unemployment. There is also shortage of resources for the same issues that we are dealing with, educational issues, Chairperson. So I think for me, I follow this,
Yes.
Chairperson. I may be wrong,
Yeah.
but I follow what
Yes.
the Act says, and
Yes.
I still believe
Yes.
I was correct, Chairperson.
Yes. No, I think, I don't know of anybody who would not agree with you that the destruction of property, whether it's public property or private property, during protests is completely unacceptable. I certainly agree with that part of what you are saying. It's unacceptable. But remember that this statement, while condemning the destruction of property and the burning of property during protests, it says, and I think we agreed, it says the SABC will no longer show visuals of the burning of property. So there is that part. But I want to look at two or other parts, and after that, you can indicate whether there is something else that would make you say, although those paragraphs that you have read, Chair, seem to say we are not going to show the burning of property, actually, when you read the other parts, these other parts, they change the picture to say the message was different. Okay?
Okay,
All right. Now, the third paragraph on page 84 reads, the SABC's Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng, stated that, and it quotes, it is regrettable that these actions are disrupting many lives, and as a responsible public institution, we will not assist these individuals to push their agenda that seeks media attention. As a public service broadcaster, we have a mandate to educate the citizens, and we therefore have taken this bold decision to show that violent protests are not necessary. We would like to encourage citizens to protest peacefully without destroying the very same institutions that are needed to restore their dignity. Now, as I read this paragraph that I've just read, it seems to simply no longer now talk about the showing of visuals. It simply seems to criticize and condemn the destruction of property, the burning of property, that this is unacceptable. And as I said, as far as that is concerned, I don't know of anybody who would not agree with saying the destruction of property and burning of property is unacceptable. But I don't know whether you have picked up anything from this paragraph that I've read now, which changes the message from saying we are not going, as SABC, going to show visuals of the burning of properties.
Chairperson, I think it changed because what we are saying, we are just condemning this burning of visuals, because, Chairperson, people also should think that we are also part of South Africa. I'm a citizen here. So I will also have my own views that I will think that these views really, what is happening. I think even Chief Justice Motsoeneng, Deputy Chief Justice, he condemned this.
Yeah.
During the farewell of Deputy Chief Justice Motsoeneng. He was even vocal than me, I think so.
Well,
but I don't want to say right now.
Well, if it means anything, I can tell you that I condemn the destruction of property and all violence that we see in our country at different times when there are protests. It's unacceptable. And it doesn't define us. That is not who we are as South Africans. So, and I believe that most people would agree with that. So that part is not controversial, I think. Yes.
Okay.
So to the extent that this paragraph that I've just read condemns the destruction of property, I think it's non-contentious. Okay.
Thank you.
But I don't think, and I'm giving you a chance to say something if you don't agree. I don't think it cancels what I've read before in the previous paragraphs, which says, as SABC, we are not going to show visuals of the burning of properties. Do you want to say anything on that understanding on my part?
I'm with you.
Yes.
My understanding, Chairperson, is the same.
Yes.
But as I said,
Yes.
what informed that paragraph
Yes.
is because people now, they were marching to the SABC.
Yes.
We were
yes.
trying to find a way of
Yes.
discouraging them. Because
Yes.
now for them to ban, it was now a norm that they
Yes.
will rush to SABC and even demand that we
Yes.
should show the visuals. I think we did it in good faith, but your
Yes.
understanding, Chairperson, will be still my understanding.
Yes.
But I also want to justify that, Chairperson.
Yes.
After Sophie and Notando came to me, I clarify these issues, Chairperson. And I think Advocate Norman asked me about whether we, if I'm correct, whether we did communicate with staff about such decisions. As the COO, I communicate with people who report to me. So I'm expecting them to go and communicate with people that report to them, Chairperson. I believe that they did communicate from that angle, Chairperson.
Yes.
That is my view, Chairperson.
Yes.
The last one, Chairperson, and forgive me on this one, because it just came into my mind.
Yes. Is it still on the statement? Because I'm about to finish with the statement, then we move on to something else.
Chairperson, if I leave this one, Chairperson,
Okay.
please
Okay,
forgive
say
me,
it.
Chairperson.
Yeah, say it, yeah.
Chairperson, when my council was dealing with the issue of that form, what I want to clarify, Chairperson, there is no dispute about that form that I wrote Standard 10. The dispute between me and Public Protector, what I disagree with her, is when she says I was employed at the SABC because I misled the SABC. That is where the dispute is. I said she was wrong because I was not employed because of that form that
That form.
I feel, yes, Chairperson.
Because you had already been employed by the time you filled the form.
Yes, Chairperson.
That's your point.
Yes, that is my point, Chairperson.
Yes.
And I said I did not lie when I
Yes.
was employed.
Yes.
That is the issue.
Oh.
But the form, Chairperson,
Yes.
I think we are in agreement.
Yes, we are
Chairperson.
in agreement on that, yeah.
Sometimes I differ with my counsel, Chairperson.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong about the issue.
Okay.
And he's here to guide me
Yes,
and
yes.
advise me,
Yes.
Chairperson. And I told him,
Yes.
Chairperson,
Yes.
I'm not here to
defend
defend
yourself.
or to do whatever.
Yes.
I'm here just to tell the truth,
Yes.
right or wrong.
Yes.
And he knows, Chairperson, he's here
Yes.
to, because
Yes.
he's here, Chairperson, because I'm in court
Yes.
on other matters so that he can
Yes.
protect me on those issues.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just to complete the statement, the last part of the statement says, the SABC would like to make an appeal to other South African broadcasters and the print media to stand in solidarity with the public broadcaster, not to cover the violent protests that are on the rise and in turn destroying public institutions. So I think I've now read almost the whole statement. I think the whole statement, and I think you and I are bound to agree that the understanding which I've been talking about is correct, but it may be that you explained, when you explained afterwards, you might have explained it in a different way. Is that correct?
It is correct, Chair.
Yes. Ms. Norman, do you want to
Yes.
take it from there?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's 11:15, Chair.
Oh, yes. Maybe before we take the tea
Chair,
break,
yes.
or maybe let's take the tea break,
Oh,
and
okay.
then we
Thank you,
can
Chair.
come back.
Yes.
We will take the tea break and resume at 11:30.
11.
No, I think I have reason to increase our tea break.
All right.
Let's say 25 to 12. We'll resume 25
Thank
to
you, Chair.
12. We adjourn.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry I've taken longer because of other commission demands. So I should have been back 7 minutes ago. I'm sorry about that. Maybe before we proceed, let's finalize this part, Mr. Motsoeneng, because I think it is an important part of matters relating to the SABC, relating to the decision or the statement, what I think the SABC 8 ended up calling the policy, I think. From what you have said, I gain the impression, and you must tell me if I'm right, I gain the impression that you do not believe, as you sit there, that SABC should have made any decision to ban the showing of visuals of the banning of properties during protests per se. What you were opposed to was the SABC or the SABC complying with requests or demands from some people when they say, we are going to be banning property, come and show us banning property. Am I correct? Is my understanding correct?
You are correct, Chair. But also, going back a little bit, as I said earlier, the Broadcasting Act, talks about glamorizing violence. So all this information inform my decision to come to that conclusion, Chair. But we didn't really ban.
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson. We didn't really ban, Chairperson.
Yes. Am I right to think that it would have been wrong to ban the showing of visuals of anything else of the banning of property during protests? Am I correct in taking that the view that it would have been wrong, and is that a view that you share? The banning per se, the showing of visuals, banning the property.
You know, Chairperson, sometimes when you respect someone like maybe your father, example, if you disagree, it's difficult. But it's a difficult one.
It's a difficult one.
Yeah, but let me try to explain, Chairperson, in my...
in your own words.
Yes, Chairperson. In my view, Chairperson, it is unlawful. I follow what the law says. I'm still saying today, banning property, whether private or public, it is unlawful, Chairperson. I will submit that.
And we agreed on that, yeah. But remember, my question now is on the showing of the visuals of the banning of property during violent protests, whether...
Maybe to explain to that, Chairperson, for me, it's the same thing, Chair. You show the visuals. What are you showing? You show the banning, which is unlawful. Yeah, Chair, I will submit that, Chair.
But is the showing of the visuals so that the public can see what's wrong in our country, is showing those visuals unlawful, on your understanding?
The how, Chair.
Sorry?
It depends the how.
Okay, elaborate.
Yes, Chairperson. The how is, Chair, like I said, let's say television this is live. If people ban this building, we are inside, and then they show these visuals, it will be unlawful. But if someone maybe come in and you know that there are no people inside, it is not unlawful.
Okay.
I will submit that, Chairperson.
Okay. Based on that, I take you to mean that you are saying that simply showing visuals of the burning of property during protests on its own is not unlawful.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, okay. And you say you, in your own mind, you say you were not intending through the decision that you took, you were not intending to ban the mere showing of visuals of the burning of property as such. Is
I
that
agree
right?
with you, Chair.
Yes, yes, yes. It was certain, when the visuals show the burning of property in certain circumstances, that's where the problem was as far as you were concerned, when certain people start saying, SABC, come and show us we are going to burn property, or when maybe there are people inside the building that is being burnt. That's the kind of situation you had a problem with.
This is exactly what I explained, Chairperson, to Notando Maseko and Sophie
Yes.
when they were coming to verify this issue.
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Ms. Newman, I don't know
Yes,
whether
thank
you want
Just
to...
to proceed on that, Chair.
Yeah,
it's just, yes,
yes,
thank you very
yes,
much.
okay.
Thank you. Mr. Motsoeneng, if somebody comes to the SABC and say, please cover this, I'm going to burn a building, that's unlawful. The Act says you can't participate in an unlawful act, am I right?
Yes.
So you don't need a directive for that. A simple no, we will not come, we will not cover it, would suffice.
Yes.
Good. Now, these, you were aware that these were service delivery protests?
I was aware.
Yes. And these protests, according to you, and the note that you sent, does not distinguish which protests must be covered or which protests must not be covered, as you have indicated to the chairperson, that you had the house, how this is going to be done is what you were dealing with. But this, you would agree, does not make that distinction.
I will disagree.
But where does it make it? Where does it define the ban of violent protests that you wanted to actually ban?
I think, Chair, earlier I did allude to the issue that people were calling us. Sometimes, Chairperson, I'm a citizen. I know in the area, the same so-called comrades, because they are unhappy within themselves, they mobilize these people to go and do these issues. Even when you ask them, they will tell you, I mean, if you know the reality, I mean, that will inform you all these issues. We can say protest, but also we must be honest. What is the cost of this protest? So some of us who deal with a community daily, sometimes we know what informs this decision, Chairperson.
Thank you. But then in your statement, not only do you say you want to not to cover violent protests, but you go beyond that. You identify that there's certain people who have agendas. So it's not simply a statement of you saying, I want to caution my journalists not to cover these instances, but it goes beyond that, because now you are in a you actually say that we will not assist these individuals to push their agendas that seek media attention.
Because I know the agenda. Because they talk to me, these people. When they come, Chairperson, demanding this coverage, they talk about, no, you have covered that one, that province, that area. Chairperson, I want to repeat, in South Africa, there are issues that we should condemn from the onset. This is one of the issues that we should condemn, because we can't build monsters in our society. We need, Chairperson, role model. So I will die with this statement, Chairperson, and I'm doing this with due respect, Chairperson.
Then in your belief that you have to condemn this, I think you were not government. These protests were not against the SABC. These were service protests, service delivery protests that were directed at government. And you are not government. The SABC was not government at that point.
Chair, my submission is we are all citizens. Government is us, we are government as citizens.
No. But then, Mr. Motsoeneng, I just want to understand, how do you then use your powers as the COO of the SABC, a broadcaster? How do you use those powers to deal with matters that affect government? If these people were protesting because they needed water, electricity, you knew that the SABC doesn't provide that. Now, there is not a single sentence in this statement that says there's these violent protests, we urge government to please handle this matter or help people so that this can be avoided. All you're doing really is to condemn the protests, and then you say, in the last sentence that the chairperson has read to you, the SABC would like to make an appeal to other broadcasters and print media to stand in solidarity with the public broadcaster, not to cover the violent protests that are on the rise and in turn destroying public institutions. So you had moved away from being a broadcaster and you decided you were going to deal with this matter, and nowhere in your statement do you call upon government to actually handle this matter.
Chairperson, I will submit I follow the law. This is what I will submit, Chairperson. And in the issue of, I mean, it's a public broadcaster. I don't need to ask government. I don't need to do that. I mean, I'm a public broadcaster. There is mandate to cover government, to cover whatever that we must cover. So I don't need to go and tell government. Let them take responsibility to deal with the issues. That is not my issue to deal with.
Yes. No, the issue is not you telling the people. The issue is you changing the mandate of the SABC to say to the SABC journalists, do not cover violent protests. That is the issue.
I will submit, Chair. That sentence is wrong. Because I have already explained, I have never said they should not cover this protest. So I will submit that I still stick on the issues that I referred to earlier.
Thank you.
Maybe let me come in at this stage. Are you able to say, as you sit there, that to the extent that this statement that was issued by the SABC may be read to mean you were saying violent protests must not be covered, or may be read to mean the banning of property, the visuals relating to the banning of property during protests should not be shown. It was wrong. In other words, to the extent that it can be read to mean that, would you be able to say, no, to that extent, then it must be said to have been wrong?
Chairperson, banning of property, it is wrong, it is unlawful according to the Act.
We long agreed on that, you remember?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. What I'm saying is, you remember you issued a statement to the
Yes.
public. The public is entitled to read that statement and understand it, what it means. The SABC journalists themselves should be able to read that statement and say, this is what it means. It says I mustn't do this, I mustn't do that, I mustn't do that. Now, that may or may not reflect what you may have intended. But when they read it, they would understand it in a certain way. Maybe subsequently there might be clarification which gives them a different picture, I'm not sure. But let's talk about somebody who picks it up and reads it. So I'm saying, are you able to say, insofar as this statement can be said to have said to the journalists, don't cover the burning of property during protests, then that part was wrong?
Chairperson, I will submit that in my understanding of that statement, my understanding is we will cover whether people are going to ban, but we will not show, like I have already alluded, the physicality of the banning because of some reasons that I was talking about. Chairperson, let me give you an example. In the past, you can cover it. In the past, because television was not live. Currently, television is live. Which means if you cover, because when you cover it, it's just the visuals. Maybe even the police can come and look for those materials. What I'm saying, Chairperson, when the journalist goes there, they can cover it, have the records, but not show those pictures because the actors don't glamorize violence. You will show, but responsibly so, Chairperson.
Well, that seems to be a little different from what I thought we had achieved in terms of understanding, and maybe understand. My understanding so far has been that what you are saying is you never intended that visuals of the mere visuals or the mere showing of visuals of the burning of property during protests should not be shown on television. My understanding is that you were saying you never intended to say that, number one. Number two, your understanding of this statement is that, well, certain parts we reached just the same understanding, but my understanding is that you are saying you never intended to say visuals of the burning of property should not be shown, per se. Your difficulty was other issues connected with that. One, if people are inside the building, or if people are trying to get out, they got caught out in the fire, or if people say in advance to SABC, come and show us we are going to burn property. That's my understanding, that you were saying you were not intending to say visuals of the burning of property per se should not be shown.
Chairperson, 100% I'm with you.
Yes.
The only issue I think here is English. You know,
Yes.
advocate want to catch me with something that I have already alluded to, but I do
Yes.
understand that he's just doing her work, so I don't have a problem with it,
Yes.
Chairperson.
Okay.
Also, I must stick to, but I think
Yes.
it's English,
Okay.
especially not from her side, maybe from
Yes.
my side, Chairperson, but
Yes.
I agree with you what you are saying.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair. So when you agree then with the chairperson, then it means you will agree that that sentence, second sentence in the second paragraph that says, we will not cover people who are destroying public property. If you agree then with what the chairperson has put to you, then it means that you agree that this part of the instruction should not have been made. It was contrary to the policy of the SABC. Because you are not talking about visuals, you're simply saying don't cover public projects where there's destruction of property.
But, Chairman, I will submit that we should not be selective. We should read the whole statement. So by reading the whole statement, you'll come to conclusion to understand what we meant, and even after I explain to the SABC staff what I meant, I explain it to the public during those debates on the matter, Chairperson.
Of course, earlier on we went
Yes.
through the whole of it.
Yes,
so,
yes.
So you remember that.
Yes.
The
Yes.
two of us at least.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, maybe let me move forward with...
Yes. No,
now, could you just tell the chairperson then If then a journalist goes out, covers the violent protests, and those footages are shown, what were the consequences?
The consequence of that, I can't say the consequence because there are no consequence. What we are saying, Chairperson, we just said people should be responsible, but if you have been given directives.
I'm sorry, Mr. Motsoeneng, I know I'm interrupting you in the middle of a sentence,
Yes,
and
Chair.
I'm sorry, Ms. Norman.
Yes, Chair.
I just want to say something to Mr. Motsoeneng before we move to that
To this,
part.
yes.
I just want to say, to the extent that you say that in making this decision, you did not intend to ban, so to speak, the showing of visuals of the burning of property or covering the burning of property. To the extent that you say that is what that is what your intention was. It just seems to me, now that you and I have gone through the statement, it seems to me that the statement seems to say something else, namely, don't cover the burning of property. We mustn't show visuals of the burning of property. That's the impression I get from it. And you know, earlier on, you and I went step by step to say, here is my understanding, and I think we ended up having the same understanding on what this says, but you did say, you explained it afterwards to journalists and to other people. So I just want to make that point and then allow you to comment that it does seem that the statement might not be reflecting what you say you intended.
Chairperson, I think earlier we agree. So I will submit that that agreement between me and you, Chair. Still stands, Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes, still stands,
It
Chairperson.
stands, yeah.
Yes, I can't move from,
From
what
that
we have
agreement,
agreed
yeah.
upon.
Okay.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So you were going to explain what consequences were there if people fail to comply with that directive?
No, if people differ with you, there can't be consequence. I mean, it's normal, Chairperson, that people must differ with you. I mean, you should allow that people to differ with you, but you have responsibility as the accountable person, but it doesn't mean that when people differ with you, you can chase them away. You can't do that.
Yes. Chair, may I just take the witness to page 85? This is a notice of suspension quoted in the Labour Court judgment.
Well, I think you can take me to page 85. Mr. Motsoeneng.
Oh, yes, by the way.
You just
Thank
tell
you.
him, read to him what
is there.
Yeah, he will deal with it, and if he needs to look at anything, he will say.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, at page 85 of the Labour Court judgment, paragraph 17, the court recorded the following. 3 days later, on 23 June 2016, Kreche, Venter, and Kubule were called into a meeting with management and informed that they had been suspended. Disciplinary proceedings were instituted against all 3 employees and remain pending. The suspension notices of 23 June 2016 are identical in their terms and state. Notice of suspension. It has come to management's attention that you have allegedly refused to comply with an instruction pertaining to the provisions of the SABC editorial policy, as well as the directive not to broadcast visuals/audio of the destruction of property during protest action, and that you distance yourself from the instruction. The above alleged offense constitutes a refusal and or failure to comply with a reasonable and lawful instruction, and same impacting negatively on the day-to-day broadcasting operations. Please be advised that management regards the alleged offense as being of a serious nature and is furthermore resolved that the potential of your presence at the workplace may interfere with the investigation into the matter. Therefore, a decision was taken to suspend your services with the SABC with immediate effect pending institution of disciplinary action. Your suspension is with full remuneration. Please hand in your SABC access cards, laptops, And then it goes on to tell them when the disciplinary, the further steps. And then yours faithfully, Simon Tebele, Acting Group Executive News and Current Affairs. The first question, did Mr. Simon Tebele report to you?
Maybe, Chair, I should explain. Mr. Tebele was the Group Executive of News. The direct line, it's me.
He reported to you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And were you aware that these journalists were, in whatever capacity they were holding at the time, were suspended for having failed to comply with the directive that the chair has taken you through paragraph for paragraph?
The information, Chair, that I've got from SABC, the information was leaking of the information of the SABC, not the dispute between management and them. And Chairperson, I will refer you to...
Oh, I'm sorry, just repeat that. I want to make sure I understand it.
The information that I've got, Chairperson, the disciplinary hearing, it was because of the dispute no, not the dispute, Chair, sorry, not the dispute. It was because the journalists, they leak information. They spoke to media. When the policy of the SABC, you are not allowed to talk to media. It was not about their differences when it comes to the visuals. The issue was leaking information or communicating publicly so with the media. The same with me. I communicated with media. I was chased away. I was disciplined, and the SABC got rid of me. The same SABC did that, but the court ruled in their favor. So, but it was not the visuals. It has nothing to do with the visuals. But also, Chairperson, I can elaborate that really I will refer the advocate to my affidavit. And I will stand by that, my affidavit, because even in that affidavit, I explained I was not involved. Even the finding of the court, Chairperson, says what I was supposed to do is to overrule, in my understanding. I may use wrong English, but it's to overrule management on their decisions. So I was not involved on the matter. I can't take the matter further than what I'm saying, Chairperson.
So what do you want the chairperson to make of this suspension notice, that it must simply be disregarded? It's not what you would have done, or you're saying Mr. Tebele did his own thing?
I was not involved.
Okay. Thank you. Now, can we then move to the second?
Before you move, I'm sorry, Ms. Norman.
Yes, yes, Chair, no.
I'm sorry. I want to say something in regard to this, but before I do that, going back, Mr. Motsoeneng, to the statement that was issued by the SABC relating to the decision that you made about violent protests and so on. At some stage in the future, somebody might stand in front of me there, a lawyer, and say to me, Chairperson, don't accept what Mr. Motsoeneng said before you. When he said his decision, when he said he did not intend to ban the showing of visuals of buildings during protests. That was not the truth. Don't take what you are saying. Because when you read the statement that he issued, that is now a lawyer arguing before me, before I write my report. A lawyer might say, this statement that was issued by the SABC is clear as to what was not supposed to be done. It doesn't talk about journalists of SABC don't be party to criminality and agree when people say we are going to ban property, come and agree and come and show us. It doesn't say anything along those lines. If you read the statement, there's now a lawyer arguing to me. It says that there are clear statements in this, sentences in the statement which show that what was said was, don't cover these protests, don't show the visuals of these protests. And when you look also at the letters of suspension of the relevant journalists, it's quite clear. I just read a part that Ms. Norman read. It has come to management attention that you have allegedly refused to comply with an instruction pertaining to the provisions of the SABC editorial policy, as well as the directive not to broadcast visuals / audio of the destruction of property during protest actions, and that you distance yourself from the instruction. The above alleged offense constitutes a refusal and or failure to comply with a reasonable and lawful instruction, and same impacting negatively on the day-to-day broadcasting operations. So this lawyer now argues before me in some months to come and says, make a finding that Mr. Motsoeneng knows enough English to have understood what this statement means. This thing that he did not intend to ban the showing of visuals has no basis when you look at the statement. What would you say if somebody says that?
Chairperson, let me submit to you, to say to you, when you read the act, it is unlawful, except if that lawyer will be coming with his own law. But when you read this, Chairperson, actually showing violence, glamorizing violence, it is unlawful. If we stick it to the act, Chairperson. The second point, Chairperson, I will submit that that statement, it cautioned people about banning what you call it, whether building or clinics, Chairperson. It cautioned people. I will submit that when you read the statement, really, I think, Chairperson, if my respected Advocate Norman submit that, I will.
Well, it might not be her, but I'm just saying somebody.
Yeah, Chair. I'm just saying because she's in front of me, Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay.
So I will submit that, Chairperson. I mean, reading that statement, not looking for what you are looking for, just applying your mind independently. You will realize the importance of that statement. But also, Chairperson, even after that, let's say people didn't understand what we meant. Even after that, I have already alluded that I explain publicly so, and also SABC has been covering such a protest and banning of those properties, but responsibly so. That is what I will submit, Chair.
Thank you. I interrupted you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then I'm sure then, Mr. Motsoeneng, you would agree that you had these journalists that were suspended, and according to this judgment, the SABC had stated that they were suspended because they did not agree with that policy, or whatever, whether you call it a policy or a directive, and that they had were also critical of management.
Chairperson, maybe I should also say that we should not leave the issue about the Constitutional Court, which we are part of, Chairperson. The journalists came to you and you dismiss especially on this so-called policy of SABC about violence, maybe starting from that point, Chairperson. The Constitutional Court, which all of us will respect, dismissed those views. But the Labour Court, Chairperson, if I may put my side of the story, I think they went out of their way to deal with issues that they were not supposed to deal with. Because there, the charges, it was about putting SABC into disrepute by talking to media. It has nothing to do with the decisions. And that's why I'm saying maybe when they went to court, Constitutional Court, because when they went there, they were trying to say the Constitutional Court should rule that the policy of SABC, it is unconstitutional, which the Constitutional Court rejected, Chairperson.
Well, you are right to say I was part of the panel of the Constitutional Court that dealt with that matter. But there is no reasoned judgment, if I recall correctly, judgment. There was just an order. I'm not going to speak for the court while I'm sitting here because I'm not the court. But it's worth just mentioning what the scenario was at the time, if I recall correctly. The Labour Court had, when the Constitutional Court made its decision to dismiss the application to the court relating to the policy, I think the Labour Court had pronounced on the issues that were dealt with in that judgment. 1, 2, I think the SABC had restated the SABC 8. But 3, if I'm not mistaken, the SABC had withdrawn, whether you call it the policy or the decision or the directive, all that had happened. And sometimes when the Constitutional Court dismisses an application without giving a full judgment, sometimes it is on the basis that the whole thing has become academic. I'm not saying that in that case that was the reason. I'm saying sometimes that is what happens. So, but I leave it at that. Yes,
Thank you. Yes,
you may continue.
Thank you, Chair. Did you, Mr. Motsoeneng, on the 31st of May 2016, summon Mr. Krige and Ms. Pillay to a meeting to discuss matters that they were unhappy about?
I met them, Chairperson, but there is protocol within the organization. I informed the head of news, their head radio, that I want to meet them. But just giving you background, Chairperson, the issue was the issue when they were dealing with the same issues that we are dealing with today. Because I said, they said no. Now I'm talking about the police, Chairperson. When I called them, it was because of the police. They invited me for interview. It was myself and Anton Hienes. During that time, after interview, they said, but we are not aware of this policy. I remember very well. Anton said to them, no, that policy is even in the, you can Google it, internet, you'll find it. In the SABC, you'll find that the policy is that was the main reason to have that meeting and clarify the issues, because it seems as a management, they were not communicating with them, because when we take decisions, whether at board level or at ESCO, we are expecting the head of those units to communicate such decisions. So that was the main purpose.
Yes. Both of them had testified before the chairperson that at that meeting, this is where you told them that if people do not adhere, get rid of them. We cannot have people who question management This is the last time we have a meeting of this kind. And Mr. Matthews added, it is cold outside. If you do not like it, you can go. You've got two choices, the door or the window.
Maybe before Mr. Motsoeneng responds, you must just say where you are reading that from.
Sorry,
is it minutes or is it something
It is also
recorded?
quoted in the judgment, Chair, but both witnesses testified to it.
Yes,
in
okay.
evidence, yes.
But were there minutes, or was there something that they said
They
was
had recorded that
Yes.
conversation. And I can just direct in the bundle where their statements are.
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted
Just
to
for the
make su-
record, Chair. Yes.
No, that's fine. I just wanted Mr. Motsoeneng to appreciate the whole context of
that.
what you are saying
Thank you,
before he
Chair.
responds, yeah.
Thank you. This is Krege. Sorry, if I may just read paragraph 3 of Mr. Krege's affidavit. I beg your pardon, Chair. At page 3, paragraphs 9, 10, and 11. He says, in attendance were Mr. Motsoeneng, Mr. Jimmy Matthews, Mr. Simon Tebele, Mr. Anton Hienes, and Ms. Sibolelo Ditlaganyani, and the spokesperson, Mr. Kaiser Kanyaho. These meetings were formally recorded and should be archived in the office of the GE News. Everyone was aware that the sessions were recorded. I transcribed one session, and my colleague Sandra Dilange also transcribed a session. At the meeting, Mr. Motsoeneng stated, we are cleaning up the organization. People are doing their own stuff. There are many journalists outside that want to work for the SABC. The environment outside is bad. No person within the SABC is independent. The SABC is independent. This is the new SABC. You must adapt to find a job elsewhere. Editors Forum must go. It is advertising for rival newspapers. He added, if people do not adhere, get rid of them. We cannot have people who question management. This is the last time we have a meeting of this kind, which is the portion that I read. It's Krivani Pillay, I beg your pardon, KP3, page 3.
So I guess the first question must be whether Mr. Motsoeneng
Confirms that.
accepts that what is stated there as something that he stated is correct.
Yes.
And then we can take it from there.
Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, I did allude that earlier. I'm not here to defend or mislead the Commission. Some of the issues that they are raising there, it is true. The only issue that that everybody was aware that they were recording, I was not aware that they were recording. Maybe they were recording, but I was not aware. I saw them taking notes. There is difference between taking notes and recording.
Yes. Thank you. So whatever they've recorded is correct.
No, I can't say it's
Yes.
correct. It's correct, Chair.
Yes,
I
think-
can only talk about the issues that I know what I said in those.
Yes, I think
Yes.
what you should do, to the extent that there may be something important out of what you read, because he says
Yes.
some of those things are correct. He
Yes.
doesn't say everything.
Yes, Chair.
Those that you are interested in, put to them to say, can we take it that you did say this, so that if he says
you,
that
Chair.
is one of the correct ones,
Then
then
we know
you
it's
can take it
recorded.
from there.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. Did you tell them, Mr. Motsoeneng, that you were cleaning up the organization?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you also say that people were doing their own stuff?
Yes, I did.
Did you say to them that there were many journalists outside that wanted to work for the SAPC?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them that the environment outside was bad?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them that no person within the SAPC is independent?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them that the SAPC is independent?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them that this is the new SAPC?
Yes, I did.
Did you also tell them that you must adapt or find a job elsewhere?
I don't know that English chapter when I said adapt, but what I remember very well, I said everyone should adhere to the policy of the SABC, not the adapt one.
Yes.
Yes, that way. I
Okay.
don't remember saying that.
Thank you. Did you say that the editors forum must go?
Yes,
And did you also say that it was the editors forum is advertising for rival newspapers?
yes,
Okay. Did you say if people do not adhere, which is what you've just said, get rid of them?
I just want to remember exactly what I said, Chairperson.
Yes, no,
Whether
that's fine.
Let me, I will
it's
come back to
important, yeah.
it. I just want to try to
To
find
try
a
and
way to
remember.
exactly
Yes,
what
yes.
I said.
Yeah.
But I remember, Chairperson,
Yes.
it was not a secret. I said, SABC, we are going to transform, come what, when it comes to transformation issue. I said to the SABC, we are going to put the content that is in the public interest, which is local content in South Africa, and those issues, I don't really need permission, because this is what the Act says, this is what the SABC we stand for. So I said, you can't question the obvious, or question that you can't do the policy. It's like saying, I can't adhere to the law. It's those issues I said, it's public knowledge, it is not secret. I have been even publicly talking about these issues, Chairperson. Yes.
I think the one that, I think, you said you don't know this English of adapt. You said you don't know about that part. Let me put it this way. Did you say anything which was to the effect that anyone who was not prepared to adhere to this decision will have to find a job elsewhere, or something to that effect? Did you say anything along those lines, as far as you remember?
I think I should give you background, because you can't just say this without
Yes.
a background.
Yes, yes.
I said this because some of people within the SABC, their mentality, it was still old mentality. And when you want to transform, you must transform, Chairperson. And you can't work with people that work against the issues that the corporation should achieve. So I'm not going to run away from what I said in those issues. There was background that I consider before coming to that conclusion. Even myself, Chairperson, if I believe that these people, I don't agree with them, why should I stay? I can't work against people if I believe that really. I said to them, no, if you believe that SABC, this direction that you are taking, you are not in support and you don't agree with us, what do you do? What's wrong if I said they must go and look other opportunities outside? Yes, I said.
So the answer is yes, you said it, but this is the context or background to
Yes,
it. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Motsoeneng, you are aware that ICASA did find that that protest policy was unlawful, and on the 12th of July 2016. You are aware of that?
I'm aware, Chair, and I think, and in my affidavit, Chairperson, as I said, I know my affidavit and all these documents here. I alluded to this issue, Chairperson, to say, I don't know why they, you know, media, Chairperson, media is very dangerous when you just follow what they are saying, because I think because everybody was fighting the SABC and so on, they get in. Read their own act in this Broadcasting Act. That is what says, Chairperson, you should not glamorize such visuals. We stick to this. They, ICASA, according to my personal view, Chairperson, as I said, I'm just giving my views here, Chairperson. Actually, I think, Chairperson, I will submit that they were wrong. They did not follow their own act when it comes to that issue, Chairperson. In any case, Chairperson, it was not a policy. It was a decision.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just we have compiled a bundle of all the policies, but the one that deals with the aspect that Mr. Motsoeneng has just dealt with will be contained in CC 35.10. We have just, that copy is a loose copy. It's not in the actual bundle. For purposes of today, it will,
Okay.
we'll just use these. Mr. Motsoeneng, you are aware of the policy. You've quoted it in your affidavit. But do you want to have...
Well, if it's quoted
Yes,
in the affidavit,
he has quoted it.
he is likely
Yes.
to know.
He's
to say
likely to know it.
he knows
Yes.
it.
Thank you, Chair. May I just refer, Chair, to page 5? He's referring to Regulation 3, because these are termed regulations regarding the code of conduct for broadcasting service licensees issued in terms of Section 54 of the Electronic Communications Act, number 36 of 2005. And the section that he refers to is Regulation 3, Violence and Hate Speech. It says broadcasting service licensees must not broadcast material which, judged within context, A, contains violence which does not play an integral role in developing the plot, character, or theme of the material as a whole, or sanctions, promotes, or glamorizes violence or unlawful conduct. So it's not just a blanket prohibition, because you have to look at a situation within a particular context.
Chairperson, and I'm not arguing about the law here, because I'm not a lawyer. I'm just saying my understanding. As I said earlier, the way I analyze and interpret it, for me it is unlawful to glamorize violence. And when I read this paragraph that the advocate is talking about, I still stand with those views, Chairperson, that I was within the act, and I want to submit that that decision of the ICASA, they went against the act itself, Chairperson. That is my understanding. I'm not arguing about the law, Chairperson. I'm just saying my understanding.
I haven't had a chance to look at the act as such, but I did ask one of my researchers last evening to have a look at the act, and the report I got was that the act itself doesn't seem to refer to glamorizing and so on, but that comes from ICASA.
Yes.
And this, you said, Ms. Norman, these are regulations.
Yes.
These are regulations
yes.
promulgated by ICASA. To the extent that they are regulations, for the point that you may be wishing to make, Mr. Motsoeneng, it might not make a difference whether it's in the act or regulations, as long as it is in the law, because I think that was your point.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I thought that the question whether or not your decision had anything to do with glamorizing violence.
Yes.
Is that the word used?
Glamorizing.
Glamorizing violence. I thought that would not arise because I thought it would arise if your evidence was, I said the SABC must no longer show visuals of the burning of property, because I understood that would be glamorizing violence, which the regulations say should not be done. But your evidence is that you didn't say the visuals must not be shown. So it therefore seems to me that the issue of glamorizing should not arise. Do I misunderstand anything?
Chairman, you are correct, Chair. I think, Chairperson, well, in my reading, I agree with you about what we have already agreed. But if you, through Chair, A, contains violence which does not play an integral role in developing the plot, character, or theme of the material as a whole, or sanctions, promotes, or glamorizes violence or unlawful conduct. So, Chairperson, in my view, all this paragraph, in my understanding, it is warning the SABC what you can do and what you cannot do, Chairperson. That is my understanding.
Yes. Don't promote violence don't glamorize it, don't sanction it. That is at least the paragraph B.
Yes, and the
yes.
part that I think also integral, which means
Yeah.
in my understanding, issues that they don't really assist the country. The way I interpret it, Chair, I may be wrong, but that is my understanding. But you are right, Chairperson. I think we have closed the issue of glamorizing whatever. Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to refer now to the editorial policies of the SABC. This deals with the changing of reporting lines in the newsroom, because according to the policy at page 22, Chair, that policy is contained, Chair would like to have reference to it?
I've got it at
Yes.
page 17
Yes, Chair, that is correct.
of
Exhibit 18,
CC.
17 and 18.
Yeah.
That is correct. Thank you, Chair. If I may ask Chair to turn to page 22. Firstly, Mr. Motsoeneng, why was it necessary to have the policy change to the effect that now news reported to the COO and not to the Group Chief Executive Officer?
Chairperson,
Is that the issue of editor-in-chief? or not
Editor-in-Chief,
really?
yes, Chair.
Yeah.
The Group Chief Executive Officer, in terms of the policy, is the Editor-in-Chief. So that changed, and they all reported to the Chief Operations Officer.
Chairperson, if I remember correctly, that policy changed in 2016. But even previously, they were still reporting to me. In the past, the Group Executive of News, they were reporting directly to the GCO. There has been change, not in 2016, but because it's a broadcasting, Chairperson, and the strategy was put the broadcasters together so that there is no silos when it comes to making sure that we generate revenue. It's that basket in one division, Chairperson. We put that together. All the broadcasters, they were reporting to me, Chairperson. And it is a strategy of the organization. And that strategy did work very well for SABC. All the broadcasters, they were reporting to me. Chairperson, it can't be submitted that if the strategy changed, it was wrong. Because it's just a policy. It's just how people see things. You may see that, no, this one must report to the GCO. I may say, though, this must report to the COO. I mean, to be honest, you can't hammer on such issues because it's just a policy. It's not even an act. It's how do you see? I mean, how do you align? How do you think SABC will do well if we do A, B, C? I may say to you, Chairperson, in my view, and I'm not representing the board on this matter, my understanding, previously when they were changing, I think it was during Dr. Ngubane, when they were changing, is because I'm a journalist. As the COO, I know this environment of journalism. When you put someone who doesn't understand the environment of journalism, it is a problem. Because if you up referral to the person, what is going to do? What the person knows, I'm just saying, Chairperson, if because we must go and check the background, what informs this decision, Chairperson? So that I will submit it to you, Chairperson. I don't see anything wrong. But I accept the Chairperson. I mean, someone can come and say, this was wrong. I think it should happen. I may come even myself to say, no, this is what, I don't see any problem. A person, when we are in charge at that time, we have our own view and strategy. So, and we will put what we believe it will work for the organization. There is nothing wrong with it.
Mr. Thole, when he was giving evidence here about his commission or in his report, said that the idea that the group chief executive officer should be the editor-in-chief was an idea that was or may have been taken from the British system, because there the Director General would be a journalist and would have come through the ranks. So it would make sense that the Director General should be the editor-in-chief. And he says in their report, they recommended that that should not be continued with SABC. In other words, the group chief executive officer should not be editor-in-chief. And he gave the reason, which seems to be similar to what you are saying. He said, because there is no requirement that the group chief executive officer of the SABC should be a journalist. It can be somebody who is not a journalist. And it is better that the person who has the final say on these matters should be somebody who, I don't know if he said falls within the newsroom, but I understood him to say it would be somebody who is, I don't know whether it's head of news or whatever.
Yes.
But the point you are making, which might be similar to what he was saying, or similar to the motivation, is that you were COO, you were a journalist, so you understood certain things about journalism, and in your view, it made better sense that you should be the editor-in-chief.
Yeah, Chair, but not, that is my view, but I was just alluding because when a structure is changed and you are affected, they don't, you are not part of such a discussion. I'm just saying maybe that is the reason why I was put there, because they understand that I come from this environment, Chairperson.
Okay, so but you seem to be implying that it was the board that said the COO should be the editor-in-chief. Is that correct? Whose decision was it?
Chairperson, all the decisions, especially when you deal with policy, it's a board resolutions. It will be a board resolution, Chairperson. What I don't agree with the issue of Britain, Chairperson.
I may have misrepresented what was said here, so I don't want you to blame anybody because of.
Correct, Chair.
Am I correct?
You are correct. You
started
off.
Okay, Chairperson.
Yes, okay.
My point, Chairperson, you know, I have a serious problem with people copying Britain and other countries. And I have been very vocal to say why these other countries can't copy us. You see, it's this issue of quoting other people in Germany and so on, but no one is quoting you. Chairperson, this is what I'm saying. We need thinkers in South Africa, because Britain and us, Chairperson, we are very different. So we should come with our own, but also other countries, they should follow us. We should be people who are thinkers, Chairperson.
Of course, to be a thinker also requires that you expose your thinking to other thinkers, and you also get exposure to what other thinkers think. But in the end, you must make up your own mind. We agree on that.
100%, Chairperson.
Yeah, so
yes.
Not that you mustn't have regard to what other people, what experiences other people have. You must have regard to that, but you must also have regard to your own experiences as a people, as a country, and then decide what is best for you in the situation in which you are in.
I think, Chairperson, the environment itself,
yeah,
it needs that you know globally what is happening, but you apply what is going to work for you, because there are interaction between other countries and us, so that one is normal, Chairperson.
Yes,
but we should be thinkers ourselves, also so that other countries, they can follow us, because let's take the issue, Chairperson, benchmarking. You know, I have serious discussion with SABC to say, but why do you want to go outside abroad every time for benchmarking? Benchmarking. Why these people can't they use South Africa as a benchmark? But here I'm just encouraging that we should be thinkers. I'm not saying we can't go and engage other countries.
Yes.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just for reference purposes, in his executive summary, Mr. Hlaudi, at page 74 of Exhibit CC 17.2 to 18, paragraph 6, this is what he says. Lastly, the designation of the GCEO or COO as editor-in-chief is not appropriate for the SABC because the circumstances of the corporation are different from those of the BBC, the model for the current structure. Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we should just deal with the responses. You've dealt with the responses of Mr. Kreche and Ms. Krivani Pillay. And I'm not sure whether you listened to their evidence when they testified.
Partly, Chair. Partly
Yes.
I did.
Yes, thank you. Can I just take you to the evidence of Ms. Grubule and Ms. Mwaba Piri? Sorry.
Maybe before you go there, Ms. Norman,
Yes, Chair.
just also to round off something that we have dealt with already.
Yes.
You have said, Mr. Motsoeneng, that as far as you know, and as far as you are concerned, the SABC journalists who were suspended and dismissed, their suspension and dismissal was supposed to be about them speaking to the media about certain matters. It was or was not supposed to be for their unpreparedness, if that was what the case was, to comply with a directive that they understood to mean don't show visuals of the burning of property. That's what you have said, am I right?
Correct, Chair?
Yes. Now, if when one reads the notice of suspension, and if one looks at the documentation and the evidence that has come before the Commission and what may still come, if one concludes that actually the letter of suspension and maybe whoever it is who made the decision to dismiss, I understand you to say you were not involved with that. If one finds that they actually dismissed them not really for speaking to the media or communicating with the media, but for their opposition to a directive or decision that they believed said they mustn't show visuals of the burning of buildings during protests. Is your stand that then they should not have been dismissed for that?
Chairperson, news is a robust debate within news. I have been a journalist, I have been participating robustly, so Chairperson, differing even with my bosses, myself, about certain directions that I think it was wrong for the SABC to take, like in their views, and I'm not saying I'm blindly right or wrong. So it's a robust, that is allowed in the newsroom, Chairperson. And I will tell you, Chairperson, because people use my name on certain issues. And I'm saying this because if you go through the my affidavit and the SABC affidavits, they confirm that I was not part. But when Simon Tebele went to, even in his affidavit, but from the blue, in court, His advocate stand up and said, no, instruction was from Hlaudi. Because I think they have been lobbying each other, I don't know, but that is what people have been using my name, Chairperson. I will never allow a situation where people are dismissed because of the difference amongst themselves. It's normal in a newsroom, it's normal in any environment. In any case, Chairperson, I'm the most person who has been engaging staff of the SABC. The records will show you. Even the SABC employees, they will tell you. We may differ, which is normal the way I do things, but if you talk about consultation, trying to explain to them why I'm taking these decisions and so on, but I'm aware, Chairperson, that people use my name. Example, Chairperson, when Mvuyo Mvoko was supposed to be dismissed, Sophie Mukwena and Notando rushed to me to say, hey, Chief, we hear that you are saying this person must be dismissed. I said, no, I don't know these issues. I'm just giving one of the example. I'm very firm, Chairperson. And if I have taken a decision, I stand with my decisions. And I said, no, I'm not aware. I didn't say those issues. Many people were supposed to be dismissed when management, they want to dismiss them. And they go there and use my name, Chairperson. And some people can allude to that. What I'm saying, Chairperson, I will never allow such stuff to happen at the SABC because I know that is what journalists should do, debate robustly amongst themselves. Where I would act is when it comes to transformation, Chairperson, where I think we must transform, we can't talk forever. Where there, Chairperson, I act.
Well, there may be instances where at a certain stage there is discussion and consultation and debates, and there's disagreements and there are different views, and then, but somebody needs to make a decision and says, I've heard all of you. I've heard all views. But now this is the decision I make. Some of you might not like it, but we have had a discussion. I've heard you. I don't agree. This is the decision I make. Now, I assume that what you have just said does not detract from that. You accept that you may have that situation in any organization.
I agree with you 100%. That's why I said earlier, Chairperson, where I took decision, whether wrong or right, I won't mislead you on saying I didn't take these decisions.
Yes.
I took these decisions. I may be right or wrong. You'll decide that, Chairperson.
Yes.
So someone must take decision.
Yes.
And in my view, I have taken popular decisions and unpopular decisions, Chairperson.
Yes. And with regard to the suspension or dismissals of the journalists, you say you were not part of any decision to suspend or dismiss any of them. Is that correct? Or maybe some of them, yes, but others not?
Maybe, Chairperson, on the light note, because sometimes I'm a human being, I want to just, refresh myself.
Yes.
On the light note, Chairperson, Simon Debel, who was the head of news, before this issues happens, he came to my office. It was me, Anton, office manager, Pasha.
Oh, Anton is Anton who, Mr.?
Yenis, Chair.
Yes.
Anton Yenis. I think it was Mr. Aguma. I was sitting, we're drinking tea in the morning before we can start with discussing.
Yes.
He came to me and said, hey, Chief, blood on the floor. I said, hey, Chief, blood on the floor. He said, blood on the floor. I said, what is happening about blood? He said, no, these people, they defy me. These people...
Did you say they defy me or they defy you?
They defy... No, Chapter, he can't say me because they report to him.
Okay,
he said, no, these people, they defy me. I said, about what? He said, no, Chief, he discussed all the differences amongst themselves. And then I said to him, you know how I operate. If you know people are not following the policy or they are doing stuff that they are not supposed to do, you can't come to me and report these issues. You must take action yourself. So you don't report to me. So you are appointed there and you have delegation of authority. Operate within your delegation of authority. Because if you are going to cry to me, I will act on you, Chairperson. That is what I said. And
That's what you said to him.
Yes, that is what I said to him. To say, if you know, you can't come and report to me. Those people, they report to you. So if you do wrong stuff, that I believe you do wrong stuff, I'm going to act on you. So my disciplinary action, Chairperson, if I was supposed to take any disciplinary action, I will take against Simon Debe. Not those people, because it has nothing to do with me. And I don't sit in those debates where they debate stories, Chairperson.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So if Ms.
Well, maybe, I'm sorry,
Oh, sorry.
again, Ms. Newman. When I was reading the Labour Court judgment and it said who had filed affidavits on behalf of the SABC, it seemed strange that it didn't refer to any affidavit by you. That's simply because of what one was reading in the judgment. But is the reason why there was no affidavit by you to explain the SABC's decisions about the SABC aid, is the reason why there was no affidavit from you simply because you were not part of the decision to suspend or dismiss them?
Chairperson, you are correct. But what is painful in that process, remember the court says I must pay the cost. And I still believe, Chairperson, it was unfair because I was not given time to tell my own story like I'm telling you today, Chairperson, and put my side of the story. And when I checked that judgment, it says, no, but we're supposed to stop it. But even stopping that process of disciplinary hearing, then I must explain myself. But just to come to conclusion, Chairperson, to say, no, Hlaudi, you were supposed to stop this, you must pay the cost, it is unfair. And it affects my constitutional rights, Chairperson, because that's why I'm saying, with due respect, Chairperson, that's why I was saying, it seems as also some of judges are captured by what media says, and maybe other people, they come to conclusion, hey, is that Hlaudi? I am in trouble. That is my view, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you,
Thank you,
Ms.
Chair.
Newman. Oh, I see it's
yes,
1 o'clock.
It's 1 o'clock, yes, thank you.
Yes.
May you take the
Well,
lunch adjournment?
Mr. Motsoeneng has been on that chair now for quite some time, since yesterday.
Yes, Chair.
But I think it's important. I think the issues that we are dealing with are important issues.
Yes, Chair, yes.
And it's important that they be dealt with properly. So I think from your estimation yesterday, it might have been that we would have been done with him.
True, Chair, yes.
And
yes,
I have intervened also to ask him quite a lot of
Yes,
questions.
yes.
But that's because I wanted to satisfy myself on certain things and to give him a chance to also clarify his position on a number of things. So I think it's
Yes.
nevertheless important
Yes, true, Chair.
because it relates to an important institution in the country as well.
Yes.
So we are going to take the lunch adjournment. So, Mr. Motsoeneng, I'm sorry that we're not done yet. So we'll continue after lunch. But I think that it's in your interest too that these issues be dealt with properly.
Chairperson, actually, Chairperson, I'm very glad because no one has ever listened to my story. People have taken a conclusion without me being part of their conclusion, Chairperson. I'm very happy, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
We'll take the lunch adjournment. It's 1 o'clock. We'll resume at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair.
We adjourn.
All rise.